There comes a point in every thinking mind's journey when the noise of existence becomes unbearable. When the constant chase, the endless wanting, the exhausting pursuit of meaning feels like a cruel loop, an invisible machine that feeds on your desire to escape it. We call this living. But sometimes it feels like a prison disguised as purpose. You wake up, and before you even open your eyes, the will begins its whisper. Do something. Become something. Win something. Prove something. Every day the same haunting demand for more comfort, more status, more love, more validation. It never stops. Even when you have everything, it still gnaws at you. Because what it truly wants is not satisfaction, but survival. And survival, in the language of the will, means never resting. Human life is built on this addiction to wanting. We glorify ambition, we worship drive, we celebrate progress. But deep beneath these shining words lies a darker truth. We are slaves to a will that does not care whether we suffer, as long as we keep moving. It is the will to live, the will to strive, the will that keeps you awake at 2 a.m., wondering why you are not enough. It does not want peace. It wants tension, because peace means death to it. Think about it. Every desire you have, every craving, every dream, every obsession, is a chain. It binds you to what you do not yet have, and when you finally get it, the chain only shifts to something else. You spend your youth chasing goals, your adulthood defending them, and your old age regretting the chase. All for what? For a flicker of satisfaction that fades before you can even name it. This is the will to life, a self-consuming fire. It burns through your energy, your time, your identity, feeding on you while convincing you that this is what you want. It makes you chase illusions and call them happiness. It makes you fear stillness, because stillness is where you begin to see the truth. The truth is this: there is no ultimate thing to achieve. There is only the cycle, the endless birth and death of desire. The moment you fulfill one, another arises, as if your mind cannot tolerate peace. You think you are free because you choose what to chase, but the chooser itself is trapped. Trapped inside a storm of wanting, trapped inside the machinery of life that runs on suffering. And yet, somewhere deep within, there is a small, quiet awareness that begins to awaken. It sees the pattern. It recognizes the futility. It whispers that perhaps freedom does not lie in wanting more, but in wanting less. That maybe beauty is not found in accumulation, but in emptiness. The mind resists this idea. It is terrified of nothingness. It equates nothingness with death, silence, erasure. But what if nothingness is not the enemy? What if it is the final form of peace, where the will no longer pulls you in every direction, where existence simply is, without demand or pain? To most, this sounds like nihilism, but it is not. It is clarity. It is seeing through the illusion that your worth depends on constant motion. It is realizing that stillness is not the absence of life, but the essence of it. A mind that has escaped the will to life is not dead. It is awake for the first time. When the storm of wanting fades, the world looks different. You no longer see things as objects of use, of possession, of desire. You begin to see them simply as they are, unburdened by meaning, untouched by your hunger. A tree is no longer a symbol of growth or ambition. It is just a tree, standing in quiet perfection. A face is no longer something to conquer or compare. It is just another form of existence, as transient and beautiful as your own. You start to see the beauty in nothingness, not as a void, but as a mirror that reflects truth without distortion. In this state, pain does not disappear, but it loses its weight, because suffering only holds power when you fight it. When you stop resisting, it becomes something else, a quiet companion rather than an enemy. Even despair, when seen clearly, carries a strange calm. It tells you that nothing needs to be fixed, that everything already is what it must be. The will to life is a game that cannot be won. The only victory is to stop playing, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom, to turn inward and let the noise fall silent until you are face to face with the vast, infinite quiet that has always been there, waiting for you to stop running. This is the beauty of nothingness. It is not the end of life, but the end of illusion. It is where you stop asking, "What should I be?" and start realizing, "I already am," not as a name, a role, or a dream, but as pure awareness, beyond success, beyond failure, beyond desire. When the mind finally glimpses this quiet state, it begins to rebel. It does not want to dissolve. It does not want to surrender. The ego panics because its entire existence depends on movement, on the illusion that it must keep becoming something. Without desire, it feels like it will disappear. But what truly disappears is not you, it is the false structure you mistook for yourself. You were never your name, your memories, your achievements, or your failures. You were never the voice that says, "I want." You were the silence behind it. You were the watcher of the storm, not the storm itself. But you forgot. You were born into noise, raised by it, conditioned to believe that silence was death. And so, you ran, you built dreams, you fought battles, you collected titles, all in the desperate hope that one day the will would finally let you rest. But it never did it? That is the cruel beauty of the will. It creates hope to keep you moving. It dangles peace in front of you, but the moment you reach for it, it shifts the horizon. Every goal achieved becomes a door to another. Every satisfaction fades faster than it arrived, and when it fades, you start running again. Because you fear what comes when the chase stops. But what if you stopped anyway? What if, for one moment, you refused to run, not out of despair, but out of understanding? What would remain if you dropped every identity, every label, every craving, just for a heartbeat? At first, there would be fear, because the mind stands naked before the void, and it trembles. It calls it nothingness, because it cannot comprehend a state without its own voice in it. But as the fear settles, you begin to see. The nothingness is not empty, it is full. Full of a stillness that is deeper than joy, fuller than meaning, more real than anything you have ever known. It does not need validation or definition. It simply is. And in that stillness, a strange kind of beauty appears. It is not the beauty of color, shape, or form. It is the beauty of release, the beauty of letting go of the need to grasp, the beauty of being unchained from the will that has ruled your entire life. It is the kind of beauty that cannot be seen by the eyes, only felt by the soul that has stopped begging for more. But to live in this stillness is not easy, because the world does not understand it. We live among restless beings. People possessed by desire, trapped in endless comparison, terrified of quiet. They measure worth by noise, by visibility, by how loudly they can declare their purpose. To them, the one who withdraws seems lost. They will call you detached, strange, broken. But in truth, they are only afraid of what you represent, freedom from the game they cannot stop playing. To escape the will to life is to step outside of the collective trance. You stop dancing to the rhythm of society's illusions. You stop believing that your value lies in what you achieve. You start to see that most of what people chase, success, love, recognition, is only a desperate attempt to escape themselves. They do not love life. They fear silence. They fill it with goals, noise, and distractions because silence forces them to confront the void within. But that void is not your enemy. It is the doorway out, the exit from the prison of wanting. To face it is to finally turn your gaze inward and see the machinery of desire for what it is. A ghost that has been whispering lies since the day you were born. Every craving says, "You are not enough yet." Every achievement says, "You must protect me or lose everything." And so, the will traps you in a cycle of fear and craving, pleasure and pain. It keeps you running until you forget why you started running at all. When you begin to see through this, the illusion cracks. The noise loses its authority. You begin to act, but no longer out of hunger. You move, but not because you must arrive. You speak, but not to impress. You live, but not to escape death. You become an observer in the theater of existence, playing your part without believing it defines you. This is not apathy. It is liberation. The body still moves, the mind still thinks, the heart still feels, but you are no longer bound to their fluctuations. You become like a flame untouched by its own heat, aware but no longer consumed. You experience life fully, yet do not cling to any of it. And in that non-clinging, you find something that the will could never give you, peace without reason. Nothingness does not mean you stop existing. It means you stop needing to exist in a particular way. You stop demanding that life justifies itself. You stop trying to carve permanence out of what is naturally fleeting. You allow things to rise and fall, to appear and vanish, to come and go. And in that surrender, you find a strange power, the power of not needing power at all. When you let go of the will to life, the world becomes lighter. You begin to notice the small things, the way light moves through a window, the sound of the wind against a wall, the silence between two breaths. Everything becomes precious, not because it lasts, but because it does not. Transience itself becomes beautiful. And you, for the first time, stop trying to hold it still. In that moment, you are free. Not because you conquered the world, but because you stopped being conquered by it. You have not escaped life. You have escaped the need to be its prisoner. And when you look into the mirror, you do not see someone trying to become. You see someone who is. Someone who no longer fights the current, but flows with it. Knowing that the river ends in the ocean of nothingness, and that the ocean was never separate from the drop to begin with. There comes a silence so deep that it no longer feels like silence. It feels like truth itself, unspoken, unshaken, infinite. It does not announce itself. It does not demand your attention. It simply arrives when you stop fighting for control. And in that silence, you finally see what has been hiding in plain sight all along, that life has no meaning until you stop trying to force it to have one. Meaning is not found. It is created by the will. And when the will dissolves, meaning dissolves with it. But this dissolution is not despair. It is liberation. Because what remains after meaning is gone is not emptiness, but clarity. You begin to live without the need for justification, without the constant why echoing in your head. You no longer need life to make sense. You simply let it be what it is, fleeting, raw, unfinished, and yet perfect in its imperfection. The tragedy of most lives is that they never arrive at this realization. People live as if they must earn the right to exist. They carry invisible debts, debts to their parents, their culture, their ambitions, their fears. They believe that one day, after enough effort, enough success, enough sacrifice, the balance will be paid. But life is not a transaction. It never owed you anything. And the moment you stop demanding payment, you are free. Freedom is not in having everything. It is in needing nothing. And nothingness, in its quiet grace, gives you exactly that. When you are no longer addicted to the illusion of becoming, you rediscover the simplicity of being. Every moment becomes complete in itself. You stop dividing life into before and after. You stop waiting for happiness to arrive someday in the future, because you realize it was never somewhere else. It was buried under the noise of your own wanting. But this freedom is not for the faint of heart, because to embrace nothingness is to confront death. Not the death of the body, but the death of illusion. The death of the false self that clings to identity, pride, and desire. And yet, only through that death does the real self emerge, the one untouched by loss, by gain, by fear. When you stop identifying with what dies, death itself loses its power. You do not conquer it, you transcend it. The world continues to spin. People continue to chase. But you, standing still in the center, begin to see how absurd and beautiful it all is. The endless striving, the endless drama, the endless search for validation. It becomes like a dream you have awakened from. You no longer despise it, nor do you glorify it. You simply understand it. You see that every being is a reflection of the same will, each trapped in their own illusions, fighting battles that lead back to the same emptiness they fear. And you, once one of them, now carry a strange peace. A peace that does not shout, does not preach, does not convert. It just exists, silently, like a mountain that does not need to move to prove its strength. You begin to live not by effort, but by awareness. Not by control, but by acceptance. You no longer try to bend the world to your desire, because you understand that desire is the source of distortion. Instead, you align yourself with the natural flow of things. Impermanence, change, decay. You see beauty in their inevitability. Look closely at the falling leaf. It does not resist the wind that takes it away. It dances, weightless, knowing its descent is not failure. It is fulfillment. That is what life asks of you, to dance with impermanence instead of fighting it. To understand that loss is not the opposite of life, but its rhythm. Everything that comes must go, and everything that goes leaves space for new becoming. But once you see through the cycle, you no longer cling to either. You simply watch the dance and smile, because you finally know you are not the dancer. You are the space the dance moves within. When you look into the vastness of nothingness, it no longer feels like death. It feels like home, because all things return to it, and all things rise from it. The stars, the oceans, the faces you have loved, all of them are waves upon the surface of the same infinite stillness. You were never separate from it. You were never meant to fight it. You were meant to remember it. And when you do, life becomes effortless. You can still act, still strive, still love, but you no longer expect eternity from what is temporary. You no longer beg meaning from what was never meant to last. You live fully, but lightly. You love deeply, but without ownership. You succeed, but without vanity. You lose, but without despair. Because beneath it all, you know, none of it truly belongs to you, and yet it was always you. The beauty of nothingness is that it frees you from the burden of being someone. It allows you to exist without the mask of identity, without the armor of ego, without the endless pressure to become. You are no longer a fragment chasing wholeness. You are the wholeness that was never broken. And when you finally rest in that realization, you see that even the will to life has its place. It created the play, the illusion, the dream. But you have woken up. You no longer mistake the dream for the dreamer. So breathe. Let go. Let the will dissolve into quiet observation. Let your mind be still enough to feel the rhythm of nothingness moving through everything. There is no destination. There never was. There is only this moment, this awareness, this vast silence that has been waiting for you all along. And maybe, after all the chaos, after all the wanting, after all the illusions, you will finally whisper to yourself, I am free. Because freedom was never about winning the game. It was about realizing the game was never real to begin with. And in that realization lies the most profound beauty the human heart can ever know, the beauty of nothingness. When you stop wanting what you do not have, everything you need appears in the silence that remains. If this made you think deeply, make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe for more.